right, welcome into the first episode of Before Floor for the 2020-2021 season as the Heat open in Orlando tonight. Who is that?
It's Michael.
Sorry. I don't even know who that is right now.
That's Michael. He's in Orlando.
I guess so. Okay, we've got Jonathan Ramlichan up there at the top. You never know who's going to appear on these shows. Then we've got David Fernandez in the middle, Brady Hawk, myself, Ethan Skolnick. And I don't know who that is because he was wearing a mask and it was hard to tell who it is. Somebody has just appeared. Somebody just applied to the Orange Bowl for 5 reasons why I've never heard of. So this sort of stuff is going on quite a bit today. Anyway, we're going to be with you before every Heat game. The cast of characters will change at times. Greg Sylvander will be here. Alex Salido will be here. At times, Adam Barai will be here and others, Kylie Wang. But today it's the four of us getting ready for the start of the season. The Magic have released their starting lineup tonight, including someone named Dwayne Bacon in that starting lineup. We don't really have the Heat starting lineup yet, do we? Spoelstra's still holding this thing back? No.
Yeah.
Not surprising. Okay, so we're still waiting on that. So Spoelstra's already spoken to the media. No starting lineup, but that should be out at some point here during the show. We will do a post-game pod tonight, and yes, at the end of the day, will be said on that post-game pod. Let's go through it here. First thing, Erik Spoelstra says everybody is available tonight. Nobody has been traded to Houston. In fact, the Houston Rockets are not even playing tonight because of some contact tracing issues, not directly tied to James Harden's latest trip to some kind of club, although he's not allowed to play either. And so as a result, they didn't have the necessary 8 players to play in the game when they wanted 8 players from the Heat this week. Let's get to some season predictions as we go around. I was just mentioning that at MyBookie, which is one of our sponsors, mybookie.ag, you can use the code 5 on the floor, that the Heat are 43.5. That's the number. Most people have bet over. If you just look at the way that the pricing on it has moved, 43.5. If you project it, is about a 49-win season in a regular 82-game campaign. It's about a 49 to 50 win team. I believe this team is a little better than that. I think maybe they go 47 and 25, which projects out to about 53, 54 wins over 82. Would any of you play the under on this team this year?
I can't play either, so.
Well, I know that, but if you could, this is for promotional purposes only. So we'll go to you last, David. You would not go under.
I don't think so. I mean, the one hesitation. It's not on.
No, I hear you. I think
you're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the one hesitation that I would have.
Jonathan, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think we definitely the over is probably a little bit better because looking at the season due to the virus and everything like that, the depth of the team is going to really come into play in this season. And if teams are really top heavy and don't have the depth, it's going to be really hard for them to make up those games, especially when you're losing those guys for a certain period of time. You don't know when they're going to come back and how long they're going to have to be in protocol. So with a team like the Heat, where we have the depth and we have such a good coach where no matter who we plug in and who we have playing that night, we know we can kind of have that. I think that's really going to play out through the season. I mean, I took it a little high yesterday. I took about 50 wins when we made our predictions. But I do think the over is probably the best thing to take on this bet.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We were talking about it last night in the preview show. I think we were all over the 43. The one hesitation would be if, since there's such a condensed schedule and we've got back-to-backs against, Milwaukee and some of these other clubs kind of right off the bat, do they end up sitting guys? Are they, is there some sort of maintenance with some of the veterans and things like that? Are they going to give games away in that regard? That would maybe be the only thing that could keep them from that number. But if they're going to play everybody, if everybody's going to be available on a consistent basis, I think they'll definitely get over 43 wins. They might even push it close to 50.
All right, and I know people are offering to buy me a mic. I'm going to pretend I don't have a mic so that you can keep sending us money, but thank you, Justin. I am going to get that hooked up eventually once I figure out the streamer thing. But here's the one caveat for people who say that they may not go over, is that I keep hearing the Eastern Conference is better. So I dug into this a little bit today, and I don't really know what anybody's talking about. The only 2 teams that I see that are significantly better than they were last year are Brooklyn and Atlanta. Am I wrong? Is there anybody in the – I mean, Brooklyn for obvious reasons, and you saw it last night. And then Atlanta, obviously, look, they weren't very good last year, but they had talent, and now they've added Bogdanovich and Gallinari. They're going to be terrible defensively if they play certain lineups. but they're going to be better. I mean, I took them against Chicago tonight, given 2. But is there somebody else in the East that's significantly better that I'm missing on paper?
Yeah, they're saying Washington. I don't know if they're significantly better because what were they, a 9th seed? And I don't see them being much higher than that. But that would be one team.
I
Yeah,
think the guys.
Charlotte
think
might be a little bit better.
Yeah. The guys that we were really competing with at the top, we were talking about the Celtics and the Raptors. Those were our main threats last year. I think both of those teams got worse. You know, the Celtics, they lost Hayward, and he wasn't the best player for them, but he was a good fit. And then Kemba has a bum knee, and that's nothing that we really see is might be getting better anytime in the future. And if you look at the Raptors, they lost Ibaka and they lost Gasol, and Baines is okay, but I don't know how well he's going to fit. And then you just paid, that the young guy $80 million for that too. And I'm not sure how that team's going to pan out going forward. Is it so? I think the competition that we had last year, our main competition, like the Celtics and the Raptors, they got worse, but maybe a little bit better on the bottom end.
Well, okay, so the point is being made is Philadelphia, and I would agree that Philadelphia is better balanced now. On paper, they were better last year. I mean, they had more talent last year. I think the roster is better balanced. But for people who are thinking that Danny Green is going to provide better balance, you're going to get odd year Danny Green, which tends to be the better of the Danny Greens. He was pretty bad in the bubble last year, and it's possible he may go the other direction. And Seth Curry has never really played with pressure, right? So I don't necessarily think it's a slam dunk. Washington, yeah, with Westbrook, they should be better. They didn't upgrade up front at all. I guess Hachimura could be better in his second season. That gives them another option. Charlotte, is Gordon Hayward going to stay healthy? Do we really like what's on the rest of that team? And then you look at the bottom, the Knicks didn't get better. Cleveland is still relying on their young guys. They're probably going to trade Kevin Love. We don't even know when he's going to play to start the season. So I look at some of the teams on the bottom of the East. I mean, I don't think Orlando got better. I mean, they paid Fultz, but they've lost Jonathan Isaac for the season. So I don't think there's been this dramatic shift. And Indy's better only because Sabonis is healthy, but I don't think they're a matchup problem for Miami. So, again, going back to this, I think Miami got marginally better. I think that Boston got marginally worse. Toronto got marginally worse. Philadelphia maybe is better balanced. Milwaukee got better, but I think depth is going to be an issue. And like I said, Indiana getting Sabonis back, but they could trade Oladipo at any time. So I don't necessarily think the conference has gone way up. Yeah,
and to your point, just talking about regular season, I just want to mention that I think that Miami can really benefit from this regular season over a lot of teams. I mentioned you're playing these bundled up games against the same team over a span. I think that benefits Coach Spo. With the depth, he can kind of throw different lineups out there, different starting lineups out there. And we always talk about Jimmy before different, playoff series, how he kind of maps out a team and he can just dissect them. There's nothing holding him back from doing that in the regular season. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that as well. So those are just a couple of things I think they could really, thrive in this circumstance.
I think he's going to be open to some load management. That's the sense that I get. So maybe in those back-to-backs, he may not play in all of them. I think they're going to load manage Goran a little bit, but we even see it starting tonight. You're going to need depth in this season more than you've ever needed it because just players are going to go out with COVID. I mean, we didn't even get to the season and Houston lost half its roster. So the fact that Miami has, roughly 12 playable players, I think is going to be important for them coming up this year. All right, I want to throw some things at you guys that Greg and I talked about on the podcast. So I will give you guys an opportunity to answer this. The Heat's best player this season will be, David.
I think it's going to be Bam Adebayo in terms of, somebody who can put up numbers across the board. He might not lead the team in scoring, but he's going to be the focal point on offense. He's going to be the top defender. He'll probably be the top rebounder. So I think Bam Adebayo is probably going to be the Heat's top player this year.
We both went with Jimmy. You guys both going with Bam?
Yeah. I think as far as the numbers go, Bam is going to be the best player this year. Jimmy's going to take a little bit less of a load during the regular season. But I think Bam can have a year where he has 10 triple-doubles. His passing will get better. If he improves that jump shot, players will have to play him closer, which will open up lanes for other guys. So I think he will be the best player on the team this year.
Yeah, I think Bam's going to have the best regular season, but I think when playoff team comes around, then that's Jimmy. Still at this moment, they're hoping that Bam can become, that type of player. But you mentioned load management, things of that nature. I think Bam's going to step up this year and do some things offensively, like I mentioned earlier, kind of just taking more jumpers, more initiation. But then playoff time comes around. I think that's Jimmy time, and he's going to be the best player on the floor.
Yeah, and I think that's where we both leaned on that. All right, let me give you another one. Brady, you threw out this number today, and some people were disappointed by it. I don't know how you could be disappointed by it for a second-year guard who was drafted 13th overall. Tyler Hero, 17, 5, and 5 this year. Jonathan, you go over or under on that?
I would go under just because of the 5 assists. I'm not sure if he's going to get there just yet, just because of the amount of ball handlers we have. We're not a team that just has a point guard who plays point. We have a point center where Bam is playing point a lot of the times. Jimmy's playing point a lot of the times. So I think he might get the 17 and 5, but I'd be iffy on that 5 assists a game.
You think he can do better than that, David, as Ricky joins us?
Hi.
I think he could. I feel like 17, 5, and 5 is probably right around where he's going to end up. I wouldn't be surprised though if the 17 actually ends up closer to 20, on a nightly basis, because I think he's going to have the green light as a playmaker, as a facilitator, somebody who's going to have the ball in his hands quite a bit, especially, in those moments where Bam or Jimmy might not necessarily be on the floor.
Let's go over or under on this one. I'll go to you, Ricky, for this one. Over or under? KZ Okpala, because I know you're an Okpala guy. KZ Okpala makes at least 15 starts this season. You go over or under?
I'd say under.
Okay.
As much as I like the guy, I'd say under. He still has a lot to learn in terms of playing the game at the NBA level. But what we saw against the Raptors the other day proves to us that, yeah, this guy's got some game and he will have his moments. Now, my general idea is under, but anything can happen. We might unfortunately get an injury, and he could very well end up like Pippen did in '88. So
I know you like the Pippen comparison, so that's why I went to you on that one. And I know it's not a bad comparison. All right, let's go to this one. Who makes a bigger impact, Brady, Bradley or Harkless this year?
I think Bradley, just because he plugs into the spot that they need, help at that defensive guard spot. I kind of do just want to mention, though, because it seemed like a lot of people are down on Harkless because of the preseason. He mentioned that he wasn't in top shape that he could have been in, but he hasn't played basketball in 9 months, so that has a lot to do with it. So I think that he's going to get integrated pretty, as the games kind of start going. But I do think Bradley is the guy that'll, make a bigger impact just because he's going to be, they have so much depth at that wing spot with guys like Harkless that Bradley is somebody that you can't really replicate.
David,
looks like the starting lineup just dropped.
What is it?
Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler, Mo Harkless, and Bam Adebayo.
So it is basically, like we said, Kendrick Nunn was holding a spot for Jimmy Butler. So Mo is the initial starter. The Tyler Hero era has begun. So obviously that's going to be something that's discussed a lot. Goran comes off the bench. I would assume Goran comes off the bench with Bradley, with Nunn being the fifth guard. But we'll kind of see how that plays out. All right, so let's get to this one then, David. I'll give you two choices. Both of these guys are trade candidates. But if they stay, who's more likely to make an impact on this team this year, Kendrick Nunn or Kelly Olynyk?
Probably Kelly Olynyk, considering, there's such a logjam in the backcourt. I mean, there's so many guards, guys that play back there on a regular basis. And the front line could be a little thin in terms of guys with size, right? I mean, last year we saw Spoelstra roll out Myers Leonard for the bulk of the season, and Olynyk kind of went in and out of the lineup. But Olynyk does provide something that, can't really be replicated by very many other guys on the roster. I mean, he's somebody with size who can facilitate the offense, who could play beside Bam, who could stretch the floor. Nunn, I mean, there are other guys on the roster that can do what Nunn can do in terms of scoring and running the offense, stuff like that. So I think just based on the roster crunch, I think Olynyk ends up being more productive for the Heat this season.
I want to go to Ricky on this one because I know you study the history of the game, so this is a good place to start. When teams have surprise runs like the Heat had last year, and I mean, nobody can deny it was a surprise run to the finals. I liked them in the conference, but I didn't necessarily like them to go to the NBA finals last year. When teams have surprise runs, how frequent is it that they replicate those runs the next year? Are there examples that you can point to?
So, okay, I would say that it's not often that happens. I know some people will try to use the Boston Celtics as an example of doing well one year and then being somewhat of a contender the year after. But there is this thing that Isaiah Thomas has referenced often called the disease of more, where it refers to whether a team wins a championship or succeeds a great deal. They start getting their egos start inflating and their games start to change, or what they feel their role is in the offense starts to change. I think it'll be a little bit different with Miami, given the culture of this franchise, where everyone here feels like they are an underdog in some way, shape, or form. And going into this year, I think a lot of the players, especially led by Jimmy Butler, have this understanding that, well, a lot of people think we're a fluke. We're here. We're just going to keep working. We're not going to get caught up with the ESPN hype. We're not going to, I don't think there's anyone here thinking that, they're magically worth a max contract just because of a couple of good games in the playoffs last year. There's his name escapes me right now, but the former starting point guard of the Hornets who used to play for the Celtics. His name escapes me. But
Rozier?
Terry Rozier. Yeah, he was the starting point guard for the Celtics when they made that conference finals run. And he ended up getting a pretty, I would imagine, decent deal as a result of that.
He did.
Like I said, I don't see anybody on this Heat team that feels that they're too big for their britches based on what they experienced in the bubble. I think they're gonna take another step higher, because when you factor in the need for more improvement, the accountability starting from the top down, I think the Miami Heat are well positioned to be a very unique case. They can only trend upwards from here, as far as I'm concerned.
And everybody says Ricky's got that narrator voice. He is the narrator of Clutch Corner. So that's if you recognize that voice, that's one of the reasons for that. By the way, Isaiah Thomas stole that from Pat Riley. That's a Pat Riley phrase. The disease.
Did he really?
The disease of more. Yeah, if you read Winter Within, he came up with it, but Isaiah has used it since. But he was referencing what happened with those Lakers teams, and he acknowledged that he was part of that he was part of the disease of me, where he felt that he became the star of Showtime, and that's kind of why it petered out. I'm with you in this sense. You're right. Pretty much every player on this team has come from nothing, right? I mean, there are no high picks, okay, really at all. I mean, you're talking mid-range picks or undrafted guys. Jimmy Butler came from Tom Ball, was drafted 30th overall. Bam Adebayo was back into the lottery. Hero was back into the lottery. Duncan Robinson, undrafted. Keziak Palis, second round. Avery Bradley was a guy who's had to prove himself in the league. Harkless has bounced around to a bunch of teams, just like DJJ had before he came. So I do think there's a lot of that. I don't think they'll let them coast. I don't think Spoelstra and Riley will let them coast. I think the biggest impediment to them going over 43.5 is the resting of players. I think that we just don't know. And I think although the Heat talk a lot about playing guys through, they nursed Dwayne Wade through 3 years. They will load manage if they have to. Let's get to tonight. They're playing Orlando. Keziak Pala is active. Strus and Vincent inactive. Thank you, SJ Zip, for letting us know that. But again, 43.5 has them like 5th or 6th in the East. So this is where other people are projecting them. Let's look at tonight. Orlando's been a problem for the Heat historically. Vucevic, Fournier, and Terrence Ross in particular are they're better than random scrub Heat killers, or at least Vucevic is. They tend to do it to them. Heat are a 5-point favorite. What are you looking for tonight? We'll start with Brady.
No, I think Miami, wins this game. I think Duncan Robinson, like I said earlier, 6 threes, starting the season out, Mr. Reliable prediction.
Mr. Specific.
And I think that it's going to be a very good Tyler Hero game. As I kind of referenced earlier, I think this is his time to they're giving him the keys to the offense. Even though the offense is Bam, this is his time to run the offense. He's a starting point guard now, but he still has a score first mindset, and that's what he's still going to need to do. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he's kind of utilized today.
What are you thinking, David?
So, I'm really interested to see the Orlando backcourt. I want to see Cole Anthony. I want to see Markelle Fultz. But the problem for the Heat against the Magic has always been, as you said, kind of those random scrub Heat killers if Terrence Ross grows off. But I'm worried about Vucevic, and can the Heat protect the paint? Can they rebound? Can they keep him off the glass specifically? That's kind of the one sort of glaring weakness for this club, right? That interior defense. And not only is it going to be tested tonight, but throughout the first 10 games of the season, they're really going to have to lock down the interior and rebound well in order to be successful. So I'm curious to see how they deal with an elite rebounder in Vucevic.
Eight of the Heat's first 11 are against teams that made the playoffs last year, so they're going to get tested early. Jonathan, playing against Vucevic, but it also means Harkless is on Aaron Gordon probably. I feel like that's the thing that Heat fans are going to be poking at tonight, because I think there was an anticipation that Hero would be a starter, but certainly no consensus that Mo Harkless would be, particularly after the preseason that Brady mentioned. So how do you think he fares tonight?
I think he's going to struggle tonight. If you look at Orlando historically and against us, they always pound us on the boards. And they have a lot of bigs, even though Jonathan Isaac's out right now. I think Mo Bamba's still there. So they have a lot of bigs that are really just going to pound us. And if Bam's the only guy that's getting rebounds right now, it's going to be hard for Mo Harkless to deal with Aaron Gordon. But I think if he's able to shoot and make sure that his offense is kind of doing what we want to do, is have 3 shooters around Jimmy and Bam, that he can make himself worthwhile on the offensive side.
Royal, it's nice to join us. You're playing the Alex Toledo role of this program, where you arrive right as we're finishing. So I'll let you close. Rick, at the end of the day, Ricky, what are you looking for tonight?
I am looking for, honestly, just a team effort, as cliche as that may sound, because Orlando, if you look at the way their roster is constructed, they are a very weird team on paper. You've got Vucevic, who has a history of pulling down 30 rebounds against us. You have Aaron Gordon, who is like a borderline all-star at best, yet against us, he becomes Tim Duncan. You have Cole Anthony. You have some of the other guards that they have that could really exploit our wings, except for Jimmy. Harkless's foul trouble is something to look out for, especially with what we saw in the preseason. I think they might go to a bigger lineup early if he gets two quick fouls, and I think Olynyk might actually have fun with Orlando if they give him the opportunity. Team effort. Could we get a 22-point Hero game like I saw in one of the comments? Very likely, but we'll have to see. Depends on what Cole Anthony brings to the table.
All right, Royal, I'm going to let you in here on our last question. That's it, okay? This is rapid fire for everybody.
Okay.
I have the Miami Heat as a 2 seed this year. 2 seed behind Milwaukee, regular season. Doesn't mean they're going to lose them in the postseason. I think they're a 2. I think Brooklyn or Boston is a 3. David, where do you have the Heat? What seed?
Probably a 3 seed.
Brady?
Yep, 3.
Ricky?
4 seed.
Okay. Jonathan?
3 seed.
And Royal, this is the one word you'll get to say.
1!
And that's the way to close. All right, catch him on the post-game show. I'll be on the pod with Alex and Greg. I'll be back on Christmas for this. Alex and I are going to be in the arena. Follow everybody. That's 3-piece combo up at the top. Brady Hawk 305 by DL Fernandez. Royal at Royal B. Shepard, arriving late, and at Ricky J. Mark. And I'm Ethan J. Skolnick, 5 Reasons Sports. And buy the shirts, still on the site, Bam VP. We got 10% off through Christmas. 10% off through Christmas. Just use the code 5RGIFTS. Not like gifts like a Jimmy gift, but an actual gift. GIFTS. 5R Gifts. Have a great day. Enjoy the game.